Prime Minister Mark Carney seems to be a political chameleon. He was in favor of carbon taxes and against new pipelines before he got into politics, and now, according to Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, he might be getting on board with a new pipeline, and of course was the Prime Minister who scrapped the consumer carbon tax. Now, we absolutely need to build new pipelines in this country, and millions of Canadians who support the idea of building new pipelines to supercharge our economy and build the Canadian economy of the future would have been disappointed to see that Prime Minister Mark Carney did not include a new pipeline on his first list of major national projects that he announced to Canadians last week. However, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is not all that disappointed. According to the Alberta Premier, she is saying that Prime Minister Mark Carney's office continues to be in dialogue with the Alberta government about potentially getting an oil pipeline on the next list of major projects to be announced by the Prime Minister in the coming months. Now, if that is going to be the case, that would be extremely good news for the Canadian economy, for our energy sector, and for the future. But of course, as Smith has mentioned, there are laws that need to be repealed that were passed during the Trudeau era that we would need to see in order to get private sector investment in a new pipeline. We currently have an emissions cap both from the BC government and the federal government, as well as a northern BC coast tanker ban, again, both from the federal government and the BC provincial government. The federal government needs to repeal those laws, at least at the federal level, if that is to move forward. And of course, again, this is where Prime Minister Mark Carney is a bit of a chameleon here. He is someone who would have supported things like emissions caps and tanker bans, and now potentially he's going to be someone who could be repealing those laws. But if we are to see private sector investment and actually get an oil pipeline built, we need to have those laws repealed, and the federal government needs to do that. So as Parliament resumes this week, look for the energy issue to be a big file on Parliament Hill, and look for the opposition Conservatives to try to pin down Mark Carney on exactly where he stands on this issue. Canadians were disappointed to see that a new pipeline was not included on the list of major national projects, the first list released last week, but there is optimism, at least from the Alberta government, that there could be some cooperation and potentially a pipeline on a future list to be announced in a number of months. So again, we need to have our chameleon Prime Minister pinned down a little bit here, and he needs to be clear exactly where he stands. Is he prepared to repeal the emissions cap and the northern BC coast tanker ban that was passed under the Trudeau government and change his stripes yet again in order to get this done and get Canada's economy supercharged? Because we are at a time with Donald Trump's tariffs, with our economy probably entering a recession, and with job losses on the rise, that we absolutely need to be pursuing major national projects that could supercharge our economy going forward, and that absolutely includes expanding our production of oil and natural gas in Canada, and we need that pipeline to the BC northern coast to be able to export our oil to markets like Asia and around the world without going through the United States, which is something that would be absolutely crucial for our economy and for our future. So again, look for the Conservatives, especially on Parliament Hill this week, to try to pin the Prime Minister down on exactly where he stands on a new pipeline, and if he's willing to repeal these bad Trudeau-era laws in order to get this thing done.